Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Neighbor claimed an easement over half my property, trespassed and bulldozed my fence." So this story is not only about my neighbor that was a complete jerk to me, but how he used lies to get his way legally and leaving me in a sticky situation. First, I guess that I should explain what he did that caused him to gain technical ownership of my land and the ability to take over parts that he wanted. So, where I live, if you have been maintaining a piece of land for a certain number of years, you can ask for an easement over it. So, it gives him rights and an interest over it as a completely basic point of what that means. Personally, easements is one of those things that I understand, but I would have a hard time explaining it to other people. So, if you want more details of exactly what it means legally, you can look more into it before continuing to read this story. If you already know or just don't care, then we can keep going into why this guy is such a nasty neighbor. I have a decent sized lot of land, and I will admit that the entire thing is not fully taken care of by me regularly. One area was almost like a swampland, and I was just leaving the ecosystem the way that it was. The neighbor ended up clearing it up without my knowledge because I was not really paying much attention. That was until he went and caused it to be an easement by claiming his family had been taking care of that land for generations. This was completely untrue, and he did all this with lies behind my back. The knowledge that this guy was even sneaking onto my property behind my back got me extremely freaked out. I know that he was not actually near my house, but the idea of someone on my land uninvited gives me a shiver down my spine. So even though nobody in this neighborhood has fences across their land because we all know where the lines are, I figured that I was going to need to do this to my land. Due to the amount of fence that I was going to need, I knew this was going to be expensive. But I bit the bullet and built a nice chain link fence around my land. I thought that maybe it was going to be the end of it and he would leave me alone. Well, 2 days later, I got a letter in my mailbox from neighbor that he had the easement over that part of the land, and if the fence was not removed, he was going to take it down himself. I felt like this had to be illegal and finally decided to get the cops involved. Unfortunately, they just told me that it was a civil matter and there was not much they could do until I went and got his easement removed with proof that he should not have had it in the first place. So I did exactly what they said and took him to civil court. Of course, though, that takes a while, and in the meantime he did not like that I was blocking his property. He also had access to construction tools for reasons that are beyond my understanding, so a couple days after the warning, I found the fence destroyed where it could give him access. This got me even angrier because I spent a lot of money on that fence, and this is still technically my property. I own it, and we both know that him having an easement of some of the land was a total lie, so he could get land to use and extend his backyard basically. What was funny though to me in this whole thing was while I was waiting for the civil trial to happen to get my land back and build the fence again to keep him out, was that he did nothing with the land. All that time to do whatever he wanted on my land that he lied to get, and he did absolutely nothing with it. Part of me was actually curious to know what he wanted that land for, but he just seemed to want to get it to get to say that he had it. The result of all of this though was him being told temporarily that unless he can provide the proof that he had been maintaining the land for as long as he claimed, it was going back into my possession. I unfortunately could not get any payment back on my fence because of course he claimed that he didn't do it and I had no way to prove it. He did tell me privately that if I put up another fence it was going to be the same way that the last one was. A backwards way of telling me that he was going to destroy it yet again. So I figured that if I was going to do this and spend the money to fix the fence, I was going to make sure that he was going to get caught destroying it. For a while I actually did not repair the fence, and I knew very well that he kept trespassing onto the property. I caught him at least 3 times, and who knows what he was doing when I was not watching. Telling the police only resulted in them telling me unless I had proof then I couldn't do anything. Then they recommended that if I wanted to keep people out I would build a fence, ironically. I just had to figure out how I was going to do that without having it destroyed again. And once I figured it out, I set my plan into action. So I did build myself another fence, and I also installed night vision cameras looking right onto that area. Even if he tried to destroy the cameras, they would catch him taking on the fence or trespassing onto the property first. It was actually funny when I saw the feed of him one night going up to the fence and starting to climb over it only to see the cameras I had installed. I know that hiding them was the smarter move, but I kind of wanted him to know that I was watching what he was doing. He also knew that the minute he destroyed my property or trespassed, I was going to call the police on him and show them the footage of him trying to trespass on my property. He has not tried it again since then, and the time the court gave him to provide evidence has come and gone. I think he finally realized that he was not going to just get me to give up some of my land to do with as he wanted. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoy the content about crazy neighbors, then please don't forget to like the video, because that would help my channel tremendously. Thank you so much in advance for your amazing daily support. The next one is titled Boss Revenge. A few weeks ago my coworker CW was negating some minor protocols which left some equipment down overnight. He also did not send emails to some of our remote teams regarding downed equipment. So I did him a solid, or so I thought, and sent him and only him an email telling him what he did wrong. The very next night he did it again, and I brought it up to him again, because no one wants to be a snitch to the boss, right? Well, I was wrong. The very next day I failed to charge my phone and woke up to realize that my phone was dead and I was late for work, so I got dressed and boogied my sorry butt to work, which was only a 5-minute walk for me. I apologized for being 50 minutes late and he seemed cool about it, until I found out that he called the boss after only 25 minutes, something no one on our team had ever done in my years of working here, claiming he was just concerned for my well-being. Even my boss told him to just wait it out and that he was sure that it was just an accident and that it happens sometimes, because he is cool like that. My boss even told me afterwards that it was no big deal and could not imagine why CW would call him at 7:10 in the morning on a Saturday when there was literally nothing he could do about it. Then he asked me about a piece of equipment that got left down for 6+ hours, so I had to come clean. I told him that I sent coworker an email about it, and then it happened again the next day. He asked me to forward the emails to him so he could address them with CW. He also asked me not to shield CW from incidents like this because it made the whole team look bad and he needed to address it with CW personally. So now, every time I catch a mistake CW makes, which is far more often than I thought, I forward the information directly to the boss so he can see firsthand all the mistakes CW makes. I have not talked to CW much since the incident. I'm curious about his well-being though. The next one is titled Just Maliciously Complying with My Boss. I still have nightmares from working in this company, so I thought I would share one of my stories. Background: I worked at a factory that I absolutely loved. I loved the boss. My manager, now called Head AH, really knew his work and would teach anyone that showed enthusiasm. But then the company merged and we suddenly had in my section 3 managers trying to prove their worth, who all turned into massive AHs. The place quickly turned into every man for himself. For example, the 10 minutes I spent patching up a coworker before he went to the hospital came at the cost of being screamed at and then forced to stay back to make up for my timesheets being out. I can tell more tales of this for another time. And while my section needed 5 people to run, the way they managed it, people walked out and it came down to me alone. I would have 3 different managers come to yell at me, but not help or hire people to do the work. Seriously, it would be like a drive-by shooting how fast they would come in, scream and then run out. I was desperate to quit, but living paycheck to paycheck, things were brutally hard. My role was to run a CNC router, but had to run 2 of them as I'm now alone, complete the parts and get it ready to send to the customer. Often from start to ship, my parts are only handled by me. This is not normal. Normally you would send someone to help complete the parts. As I'm alone, I have to keep up with the machine. It makes sense to have the machine off at times during the day while I get things completed. You would expect a screaming if the place was messy at the end of the day, ballistic screaming. Now for the story. Keep in mind this is 15 plus years ago, so it might not be 100% accurate. I had machined a stack of parts and there was no way I could in my right mind make more parts until I had done the post-processing and had these parts ready to be shipped. There were things that had to be sent that day. Head AH, why aren't the machines running? Me, I'm really behind in this, and Head AH, why aren't the machines running? Me, this is really urgent. Let me get this part sent and I can run the machines after I finished this. Now absolutely screaming and throwing stuff. Get the effing machines running, guy. He starts berating me and saying that the post-processing was not important and running the machines was the most important part, and that I had to keep the machines running no matter what, and that post-processing can be done by anyone in the factory, but I'm the only one who can run the machines, so I have to run them and keep them running no matter what. Q. Malicious compliance. For the entire week I did exactly what he asked. I ran both machines. I would load the programs for the next job while the machine was still running its existing job. Tool holders were lined up and ready to go. While the machines are running, I would sprint from the machines to the material racks to get materials I needed for the next job ready. I ran those machines non-stop. I did 0 post-processing as I did not have a spare minute. Nothing was finished to stage where it could be shipped. There was not even time for breaks. I made sure those machines ran without a minute of downtime. By the end of the week I had machined so many parts that I had filled up 3 massive workbenches. These benches were something like 3 meters by 1.5 meters long, and I just kept stacking the piles as high as I could. The best thing is that the urgent work is now on the bottom of this pile and the work due next week was on top. This is literally hundreds of different customer orders. I don't remember the hours I pulled at this exact time, but I have done shifts such as 6 AM to 10 PM and 7 AM to 11 PM. 80-hour weeks without overtime pay were usual for me. When crap finally hit the fan about work not being sent out, Head AH had to come and talk to me, and you could see something snap in his head while he was trying to talk to me. Head AH, OP. Me, sorry not now, I have to run the machine. I just ignored him and kept setting up the next job. Head AH, stop, just stop. He starts by trying to ask where XYZ job is, and I'm just like gesturing, it's under there, man. I swear you could see him dying inside. He starts berating me on how there's no point turning the machines on at all unless the work is completed all the way and sent. He really got stuck into me, but then he is like, just leave the machine off for now and start completing these jobs. But then we both start on completing different parts, and within a minute he sees me and instantly says, get the machines running, OP. And I think it is here when he realized that it is all his fault, and as I'm walking back to the machine, I swear he looks up at the roof and screams like a crazy person. And it is as if his soul left his body. I am laughing hard remembering this. He yells at me, leave it off. And as I start finishing parts again, he looks at me and he is about to say the line again, but instead looks up at the roof and screams again. It was like every time he saw me he wanted to say it. He lasted maybe 10 minutes before he couldn't take it anymore. He storms off and sends someone over to help. But all the urgent work was buried deep. We had to complete non-urgent work first to get it out of the way so that we could find it. And guess who suddenly left work on time every day and stopped working weekends? In short, with people helping me, it took over 2 weeks to catch up and clear the backlog. Those urgent parts were at least 2 weeks late. It took a lot longer for the schedule to return to normal. The next one is titled Mechanic MC. The context: I'm a new supervisor in property maintenance and the riding lawnmower we have has often broken down. A lot of these problems are from years of not doing preventative maintenance on it, which is something I have started doing recently in order to have the machine working better for longer and cutting down on downtime and mechanic costs. I have been spending almost all my free time researching this mower, so I know what is wrong when something is wrong, and will be able to tell the difference between a 30-minute $40 repair I can do or a 3-day $600 repair the mechanic needs to do. A few weeks ago, while I was in the middle of starting a maintenance log on the mower, my boss sees me and asks, "Is that thing broken down again?" To which I reply, "No, I'm just trying to make sure that it doesn't break down again." This is when he lets me know that he thinks what I'm doing is a waste of time and money because our biggest expense is labor, so he no longer wants me to work on the mower and instead wants me to take it to the mechanic across the city that charges $110 per hour for labor. The next week, of course, the mower breaks down again. I tell my boss that I think the problem is likely the air filter, and he just tells me to take it to the mechanic. Me and my whole crew spent 45 minutes driving across the city to the mechanic, drop off the mower, and sure enough, they had to replace the air filter, and it took them an entire day. They also told me that they had looked the whole thing over and found no other issues and charged us a few $100s. 2 days after getting the mower back from the mechanic, and it began having issues again. I knew it was not the air filter, but the fuel filter looked extremely dirty. Once again, I told my boss and he told me, "Take it to the mechanic." Back we go. I tell the mechanics that the fuel filter looks bad and describe the issues I am having. They say it is probably the fuel pump module, so they replace that and don't touch the fuel filters. This is another 3 hours of labor they charge us plus parts, and the problem still is not fixed. We get the mower back from them and once again it breaks down on someone's front lawn. I call the mechanic, he acts confused and then asks us to bring it back for them to work on it more. This time they keep it for 3 days. I told them something was wrong with the fuel filter and they insisted it must be the fuel pump and took the whole fuel system apart just for them to agree with me that the problem was the fuel filter. And they insisted it must be the fuel pump and took the whole fuel system apart just for them to agree with me that the problem was the fuel filter. Essentially, because my boss insisted that whenever there is a problem with the riding mower, we take it to the mechanic even if I can fix it, it cost us nearly a full week of lost work plus over $1,000 in mechanic costs when I could have had it back up and running within 2 hours and for under $100. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.